In terms of the overall review for the game for today, let's go ahead and go through the things that we typically go through. We have our three major categories that we tackle. First is the storyline. Now, we don't have access to all of the audio logs and everything that we were supposed to get in the game. We only unlocked one of them, but knowing that there is a bit of lore there, not only with this Aruman character who is potentially like a Yakuza style boss who has the samurai and these enemies that we were fighting throughout the game. Not only do we have a sense of that, but also as we're getting the dialogue from the NPCs that are helping us in our journey through the tutorial, we're also getting a pretty good sense of like what the world is like. Obviously, cyberpunk, dystopian, Mad Max-esque, type genre that we're in terms of the gameplay, but we do see that the narrative right there is pretty spot on what you expect for this type of game. This is not a story rich game, but there is a story there. So to know that you'll be able to engage with this in a way that's very linear, again, it seems pretty straightforward. You're there to master the technique of parrying, dodging, blocking, doing all the things to defeat enemies. Again, everything one-shots you. So in a game like that, it really is more focused on the technical aspects of the game versus the storyline, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And the fact that you have that and the mechanics feel really good, and we'll get to gameplay loop in a second, but the mechanics feel pretty good, and you also pretty good story on top of that. For me, I was intrigued. We only had a small portion of the actual lore of the game, not only because it's a demo, but also because we didn't collect all the collectibles in the game. So imagine having the full version, being able to go through it, explore all the areas at your leisure, while also defeating the enemies, mastering the different skills. So for me, I think storyline is a solid 4 out of 5. Understood the assignment. Again, when we talk about storylines, it doesn't have to be super in depth if it doesn't need to be. This game is a very linear game. It's focused on the actual mechanics of the gameplay and being able to defeat things that are going to one-shot you. And so the fact that that is the focus doesn't surprise me, but the fact that they do have a pretty substantial one, maybe not substantial because again, we didn't experience the full story, but from what we saw in the demo, the fact that there is a pretty good storyline there, I think it's a definite big win. Next up, we got to talk about the gameplay loop. So with the gameplay loop, for a game like this, I think it's pretty straightforward. The fact that we have access to different weapons, the build crafting system is something that I was interested to see if they were going to incorporate. It seems like they actually did not incorporate that, at least in the demo and what we're able to see. So the fact that there's not specific armor or weapons that help boost certain stats, you do have a skill tree that you can unlock if you have the full game. But in terms of like the armor and what you have access to through the demo, it just seems that it's an aesthetic choice. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. The fact that you can one-shot enemies and you yourself can get one shot, it shouldn't be about like what build you have in terms of armor and weapons. It should be about the other aspects of the game. Again, how good are you at parrying attacks? How good are you at dodging? How good are you at making sure your timing is literally perfect in order to defeat the enemy and get to the win? So knowing that the gameplay loop is pretty straightforward, literally she understood the assignment. I think overall, again, when you go through the full game, you have opportunities to get other skills. You did see that we have the shuriken skill as well as the tempest skill, which do come in handy for solving the various puzzles throughout the game. But outside of that and getting additional skills, I really can't find a real pain point, given the fact that like ultimately it comes down to your skill. It is what it is. Again, even the moments where I don't even know if I consider it frustrating, it was like more of a challenge, but even the points where I was just like, okay, take a deep breath, figure out the puzzle, figure out how to do this differently. Again, you have to find that really even balance, as best as you can balance, to when you need to do a dash attack, when you need to fall back and play it a little bit slower, when you actually need to be a little bit more aggressive and take down the boss. When you're facing a sniper, how many shots are you going to dodge versus maybe potentially dodging one shot, doing a wall run and then coming back and doing an air attack. You know, all the different things that you have to manage in the game are really up to you. And I really like that aspect of the gameplay loop, that it's really your play style. If you want to be more passive, you can play passive. If you want to be aggressive, there's a play style to play aggressive. Either way, as long as you defeat the enemies, you're going to accomplish your goal and move forward. And for me, I think that's a really solid aspect of the game, which leaves it really open to how you want to interpret the game and the tools that it gives you, as well as just generally how you play the game. So for me, I think that part of the gameplay loop, super solid, super on par, no complaints. Last but not least, again, we typically talk about in games, you know, the monetization, we talk about those different aspects. Because this game really isn't focused on that aspect, I think I'll end with just a review over how it actually feels. Game feel is a thing. Game feel is a thing. And so when we're talking about game feel, we're really talking about like, what is the flow of the game and what does it mean to like be immersed in the game? And the fact that from the sound design to the actual environment to the fluidness of you being able to take down enemies, or you yourself be taken down by enemies and killed instantly, it's so immersive in this cyberpunk dystopian Mad Max style world where you really feel immersed in it. Everything, even to the synth track in the background, really makes you feel like not only are you in a futuristic society, but the feel of it and the fluidness of you just being thrown in. And that first cutscene is you being thrown into the mix, and you got to figure out, without, you know, really understanding the tools you have yet, you have to figure out how to defeat an enemy. I think for me, that is like a really cool aspect of the game, that the fact that they understood what type of game this is. They understood that because it's a linear game, get from point A to point B, that it really doesn't have to be overcomplicated. You don't have to like put all the bells and whistles in there. You just have to do the fundamentals. You know, like coaches say to their players all the time, you know, focus on the fundamentals, refine the fundamentals. And I think this game understood that assignment, understood what it meant, and just like focus on the fundamentals and actually get through the solid aspects of the gameplay, which are the parrying, the dodging, the dashing, the wall running, all the different things that allow you to play how you want to play, like we were talking about in the gameplay loop section. All those tools allow you to play the way you want to play, and because they have them nailed down so solidly, I could really see myself playing this game a considerable bit, or just a considerable amount of time. And knowing that, again, it's not going to replace Starfield, it's not going to replace Destiny 2. But when I think about like other games that really spark my interest, and just the fact that, you know, we talked about this a little bit during the live gameplay, just the challenge of like, literally, you know, we died what, 80 plus times, and you know, like, it's the challenge of just like, literally there are no second chances. You kill or be killed. That's the memo. And if you understand that and use all the tools that you have at your disposal, even when you're playing the motorcycle portion of this game, you really have to think about it. I had to, you know, on the fly, I had to stop using my mouse and just focus on my keyboard controls, because the mouse actually adds a different dynamic to your driving skills. All those little things, again, the overall kind of branch here being game feel, all of those things add into the game feel where like everything matters, every moment matters. And when a game like this understands the assignment, is clear on what it's trying to accomplish, doesn't go overboard with bells and whistles or just an overly complicated story, understands what it's trying to do, and then just allows you to play and have fun, to me, that is a game that is doing really well. So combining all these pieces together, thinking about the storyline, thinking about the gameplay loop, thinking about the game feel, I think overall this is like a solid 4.5 out of 5. I can see myself playing this. I can see myself playing this with, you know, friends, in terms of there isn't co-op, but I can see myself like competing. It's like, oh, you died, you know, 50 times. I only died 30 times. You know, I can see there being a lot of cool things that you can do with the content from this game. And for me, that makes me excited for these type of games. Again, this is my first time trying it. I did not play GhostRunner 1, but knowing that GhostRunner 2 has more than likely made improvements on the model from GhostRunner 1, to me, it feels really good. The gameplay loop makes sense. It seems challenging. It seems scalable. It seems engaging, and definitely something, you know, not to mention the graphic quality as well. It really seems a really good opportunity. So if you're interested in these type of games, I definitely suggest it for you. So again, GhostRunner 2 out now. You can find it in the Epic Games Store if you're interested in this type of game. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you all next time on our next game review. Peace.